So I reflected on what to say about Mother's Day, a holiday that has long departed from Julia Ward Howe's vision of what it should and could be. I thought about my own mother. I realized in the 30 or so Mother's Day sermons I've done, I've never spoken about her as a model of a woman who didn't define herself by her reproductive tract and maternal duties. I deeply appreciate that she was willing to function in the role of mother for me and my younger sister. Otherwise, we wouldn't exist. Yet, she wanted more than that. She wanted to have a life of greater opportunities than was envisioned for women in the 1950s. Jean Foyt studied home economics at Penn State University, where she met Conrad Trumbore, who was finishing a PhD in physical chemistry. She had accepted a position in Alaska as a nutritionist, but Conrad proposed marriage and a year living in Amsterdam while he did a postdoctoral fellowship. They married in August of 1955. I was conceived in the summer of 1956 and came into the world during his next postdoctoral position in Illinois. My sister arrived in 1959 when he had a teaching position at the University of Rochester. We finally settled down in Newark, Delaware in 1961. My mother was then raising the two of us, and my father was teaching physical chemistry at the University of Delaware. We were living the 1950s dream, and my mother wasn't happy with it. Two important things happened in the early 1960s. The first, birth control pill was approved for public use in 1960. IUDs were vastly improved during this time, and the use of contraception was legalized for married couples with the Griswold v. Connecticut Supreme Court decision. The birth of the sexual revolution started disconnecting sex and pregnancy. My mother didn't want more than 2 children, and now she could make sure that didn't happen. The second big event in my mother's life was the death of her father, with whom she had a difficult relationship. He left her an inheritance. Not a huge amount, but enough money to permit her to go back to school. As soon as my sister and I were in elementary school, she enrolled in Drexel University in Philadelphia to work on a master's in library science. The inheritance paid for the tuition, the train ride back and forth, and the childcare that we would need after school. My mother, a lover of books, wanted to be a librarian. She had read Betty Friedan's book when it was first published, The Feminine Mystique. She joined the National Organization for Women in 1966 when it was founded. She was on the front edge of the second feminist wave of liberation after women got the right to vote in 1920 with the 19th Amendment. The Equal Pay for Equal Work Act of 1963 meant that she could get employment, help support our family, and have money left over to do what she wanted to do, which was travel. Being a dual income family back then increased her freedom to live the way she wanted to live. Women supporters of Make America Great Again may not be old enough to remember what life was like for women in the 1950s. There was a great deal of dissatisfaction with the emptiness of the suburban lifestyle. Yes, there was more wealth and prosperity, but inwardly, many women were wanting more than being a housewife could provide. Sadly, that freedom to work and have a career that was optional in the 1960s started to become necessary with inflation in the 1970s, Reagan's dismantling of public university funding that began in the 1980s. Today, a two-income family may not be enough to pay off predatory student loans, afford to buy a home, put aside money for one's children's education, and save for retirement, maybe. The freedom to work for women has become a burden, an obligation, along with childcare duties that have grown since my mother was in that role. I didn't have play dates or extracurricular activities at the level that they have today that required my mother's involvement. My mother was fortunate to have my father's support. There was tension, to be sure, and a few conflicts with changing gender roles. But my father had a very progressive, liberal, FDR-loving mother who dominated my grandfather. My grandmother trained my father to respect women and be compliant. My parents worked things out so that my mother could go to school and start a career working in libraries. She also benefited from Title IX prohibiting sex discrimination that passed in 1972 that allowed her to move into library positions like the one she got at the University of Delaware that would have formerly been reserved for men. My mother also struggled with another frontier, women's health. She struggled with depression and experienced being discounted by the medical profession as a hysterical woman. Doctors didn't take her symptoms seriously, and she didn't get the care that she needed to improve her mental health. When she finally did get the medical system's attention, she got it because she got breast cancer in 1973 at the age of 40. My sister and I think that may have been the result of high levels of estrogen in the early birth control pills. She got the latest cancer treatments that were temporarily effective. Thankfully, she had many good years before cancer finally took her in 1990. It was in hospice that she finally got the therapy that was effective to help her work through important life issues, like losing her mother when she was a teenager, a difficult stepmother, and her controlling father. I share a brief glimpse of my mother with you today because she highlights for me what women want. She was a liberal, progressive woman with a lot of privilege, and most women want what she was fortunate to have. Whether liberal or conservative, red or blue-leaning, wealthy, middle class, or poor, most American women want the same things. Here is what Claude, an AI program, came up with for these shared wants. See if they resonate with you. Number one, safety and security. Women want personal safety and community security. They support initiatives against domestic violence and sexual assault. They want safe neighborhoods, schools, and workplaces for themselves and for their families. They want to stop crimes that specifically target women. 2, economic opportunities. Women across the political spectrum want economic independence and financial stability. They value equal pay for equal work, protection against workplace discrimination, and access to career advancement. They appreciate policies that make entrepreneurship accessible to women and support economic policies that increase job opportunities and market stability. 3, health care access. Women want affordable, quality health care that addresses women's specific needs. They support preventive care, reproductive health services, maternity care, and mental health resources. 4, work-life balance. Whether they work or are caregivers or both, women realize that they can't do it alone and want support balancing both. They want flexible work arrangements, accessible childcare options, and support for family leave during critical periods. And finally, equal treatment and respect. Women across the political divide want equal respect in professional and personal spheres. They oppose harassment and sexism in the workplace, media, and public discourses. Both groups support women's leadership opportunities in business, politics, and community organizations, celebrating accomplished women who break barriers regardless of political affiliation. My mother would have enthusiastically advocated for these desires. She was a leader in the League of Women Voters. She ran for state assembly in 1972, knocking on just about every door in our district to represent women in Dover, Delaware. At her memorial service, her peers spoke appreciatively of her being on the front lines of change, doing things they dreamed of doing. I'm pleased to be able to honor her memory here today as a mother who enjoyed being a mother, but didn't let that limit her identity. Like Julia Ward Howe, she was a lover of peace. She didn't want to send me off to Vietnam to fight a war she didn't believe we should be fighting. She protested against that war in Washington. She wanted civil rights for all people, especially ending segregation and Jim Crow in the South and celebrating the 1960s civil rights laws that were passed. I must also say that my mother would not be happy with the current administration in Washington. May I remind you that the efforts to increase diversity, equity, and inclusion meant women too. Eliminating DEI will have a negative impact on women. Women who want to move into the C-suites and be the leader of corporations. The glass ceiling has been lowered. Women will be negatively impacted by the elimination of research being done at major universities. Cutbacks at the Center for Disease Control and the National Institute of Health are likely to disproportionately negatively affect women and women's concerns. Let us honor mothers today beyond the way Hallmark may wish us to honor them and champion what would make their lives better and their daughters' and sons' lives better. Let us advocate for affordable health care that addresses women's health. Let us advocate for prevention of violence against women. Let us advocate for support for affordable, high-quality childcare for all mothers. And let us advocate for affordable post-secondary education for all young adults. And finally, let us advocate for equality and opportunity for women in the workplace. Again, these are not liberal issues alone. They are not conservative issues alone. They are purple issues that all women could find common cause. And maybe if women come together on these issues, maybe we can begin healing the divide in this country and recognize the vast amount of common ground we really have. Let mothers lead the way for peace and demand that men follow. So be it.